Hi, this is Craig Urquhart. Welcome to Berlin Conversations. Today I'm sitting here with my friend Byron Knutson, a remarkable musician, pianist, conductor, opera coach. He's got a very interesting background and an interesting story to tell. Welcome, Byron. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for the invitation. It's nice to be here.
It's my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. And as I said, you're a wonderful musician, and that's how we met. And
that is how we met, yes.
And since I've gotten to know you, I've learned how even more remarkable you are than the word of mouth. And it's such an honor to have you here. So I understand you're from Manitoba, Canada. How did you end up in Berlin, Germany?
Well, I always actually wanted to live in Berlin. Well, not always. When I was about 15 years old, there was an article in National Geographic magazine about Berlin, and I read it and was absolutely fascinated. I thought that's a place I could live. And then a few years later, I was in Berlin for the first time on tour with my choir from university, and I thought, yes, absolutely, this is a place I could live. So that's where I knew I wanted to live. And then I actually finally moved to Berlin in 1999, and then moved away from Berlin in 2000 because I got my first job in Kiel on the Baltic Sea. And then it took 10 more years to come back to Berlin, but now I've been living in Berlin since 2009.
That's interesting, because when I first saw Bernstein's Young People's Concerts, I knew I wanted to live in New York, and that's where I went. The minute I got graduated from college, I went to New York and lived there for 43 years, and now I'm living in Berlin.
Absolutely.
I came to my senses, I guess. So you were with your high school choir, and you were from Canada,
My
right?
university choir.
University choir.
I'm from Canada. My first degree, my bachelor's degree, is from the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, where I studied piano and a little bit of art history. After my first year of university, I was in a car accident and messed up my right wrist, so I couldn't play piano for a year. So I studied art history instead, something very practical.
Well, you do collect Chinese porcelain, right?
I do, and my partner collects Swedish paintings from early expressionistic Swedish art, and so the art history worked out just fine.
Yeah,
in a way.
Well, you have a beautiful collection, and we'll get to that later. So you came to Europe to work after you got your master's in Las Vegas University?
Exactly. My master's degree is from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where I studied piano and conducting and acting. And after that, I went to the College Conservatory of Music at the University of Cincinnati and studied opera coaching. I have an artist diploma then from there. And the nice thing about that program, or the great thing about that program, is that it really is one of the few places where you can specifically study opera coaching. And I knew that I wanted to work in opera for a very, very long time, and sort of took, this sort of very circuitous route to get there. But then when I found out about the program in Cincinnati, I knew, okay, this is where I want to study. And it was a great program and great training.
It is a great program. You're not my only friend that went to
I know.
the University of Cincinnati. And people think University of Cincinnati, but no, they have a tremendous...
It's a fantastic
especially
program.
for singers and
Absolutely.
opera. And what draws you to opera as compared to...
That's a very good question. I have no idea. I remember being... how I must have been like maybe 12 or 13. And Saturday afternoon, of course, on the radio, there was always playing the Met broadcast. Always. We didn't sit down as a family and listen to it, but it's just what my mother put on Saturday afternoon because there was opera. And I remember for some reason on Saturday afternoon, at just after 2 o'clock, thinking, I have nothing to do. I'm just going to sit down and actually listen to this opera. And it was Aida. And I remember thinking, okay, this is sort of taking a while to get going. Okay. But then the tenor aria starts. I'm like, that's a pretty good tune, actually. And then okay, this is not really so great. And then we got to the trio. And I thought, this is the most amazing music I ever heard in my entire life. And I became obsessed with this opera. And I went to the library when you could still go to the public library and take out records from the library.
You mean those round things?
I know. And I got the piano vocal score, and I got the record, and I drove my family crazy for a week. I listened to it every single day. And I thought, this is the greatest thing ever. I became obsessed with the language. I'm like, well, I mean, these are words. I can figure out what they say. I can get a dictionary, and that will help. And that's how I started learning Italian. And then from Aida, it just sort of went on into all kinds of other stuff.
So it was Verdi that brought you into the opera world.
Well, I would say that was my first love, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I came very, very late to German opera, which is sort of interesting because that's easily 80% of what I do now is German repertoire, which I find a real pity because I really feel myself to be an Italian coach. But that's just the way things go. So when I actually came to Germany, I arrived in Germany in '99, had a job interview for my first job in Kiel, and they started asking me about my German repertoire experience, and I'm like, well, I have none. Well, do you know Fidelio? And I'm like, I heard it. And like, well, do you know Rosenkavalier? It's like, well, I can play bits of it. And so he put the score in front of me. He's like, well, here, play the beginning. And so I turned to the beginning that I knew, which is the aria, because that's the what I've coached, Octavian. And no, I mean the beginning. And I'm like, you mean like the orchestra prelude? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, well, I don't know it. And he's like, well, just try it. And so I played, I don't know, 5 or 6 systems. And he says, well, you don't know it. And I'm like, I told you I don't know it. So they hired me anyway, which was great. But the first piece I had to play was Valkyrie. So I got the job at the end of December and started on the 1st of February. So I had 4.5 weeks to learn Valkyrie. And I guess I did an okay job because they kept me on, and then so that was my initiation into German operatic repertoire was the Ring Cycle.
Oh, that's incredible because Wagner is like the most orchestral of all the opera composers, and to have to do that on the piano is
I mean,
really intense work.
It is really intense
and it's
work.
A lot of notes.
It's a lot of notes, and they're very long pieces.
Oh my God! So people often ask me, what does an opera coach do? And
well, I mean, there's a couple different aspects to that. I would say at the very, very highest level, I'm like an acting coach for singers. So, I mean, everybody knows that actors go to their acting coach and say, I'm preparing this role. How do I make sure that I'm actually communicating what I think I'm communicating? And that's what I do with singers as well. So just last week, I was working with somebody on Don Giovanni, and most of our conversation, I mean, he knows it. He's sung it before, he knows it and is an accomplished artist. And so our conversation is about, well, if you phrase it like this, you're communicating this emotion. Or if you use this articulation, you can communicate a different shade of meaning, a different kind of emotion. I mean, Giovanni's a very complex character. There's a lot of possibilities. And so what we do is try to explore what the possibilities are through musical means, like phrasing, articulation. How do I, if I musical articulation or textual articulation, how do I get that particular shade of meaning that I really need at this moment? So that's at the very highest level. I would say at the very lowest level, I'm like, ding, ding, ding. No, it's an F sharp, darling, and you're singing an F natural.
There are singers that don't read music, right?
Absolutely.
And that was actually a real revelation to me. And I've been in the music industry for a long time.
Yeah.
And
I would say nowadays there's not many.
Yeah, now they go through big programs and everything. But there was once a time when a lot of the opera singers just couldn't read music.
Absolutely. There are advantages and disadvantages to that. To my eternal shame, back in the far reaches of time, I was teaching Lucia di Lammermoor to someone. And when I say teaching, I really, this is how it goes. And just a fantastic singer, an amazing technician, just such a fantastic interpreter, an amazing performer on stage. But really she learned by, well, you just have to play it for me and then I'll sing it back to you. And so that's what I did. And at one place on our first meeting, I played a wrong note. And to this day, she sings a wrong note at that place.
Oh, God, that's so funny.
It's really, I was like, no, she's like, you mean like, and she just, yeah. It was just wrong. And it was all my fault. So, alas.
So I'll keep my ears open when I go to that opera.
Exactly. You can figure out which singer it is by the wrong note.
So you're working at the very prestigious Hans Eisler. You're head of the opera studio there, or is it
well, together with a colleague, we are the musical directors of the vocal department.
Oh, that's really impressive. That's incredible.
It's a living.
No, come on. Hans Eisler
it's
an amazing school.
It is a fantastic school. I'm very, very, very pleased, and it's really a privilege to work there with really amazing colleagues. And the best thing about it is our fantastic students. Really in all the departments. I mean, of course, I work in the vocal department, which means I mostly have work with the singers, of course. But the times when our students do chamber music with people in other departments, with the pianists, with the instrumentalists, it's really quite astonishing, just the level of talent.
Yeah, well, it's one of the most prestigious schools in Germany, and
in the world.
Yeah,
absolutely, it's right.
I think you could say Juilliard and Hans Eisler in the same sentence. And
absolutely.
So that's I'm very happy.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy too. Like every time I look out my window at my office, I'm like, oh, I can't really believe I work here.
So, how many operas do you have in your fingers, as they say?
Oh. How many operas do
you
I
have
have
them
in my
all,
fingers?
don't you? All the major ones, and then some.
Pretty much. I spent quite a few years doing quite a lot of contemporary music. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of really.
Where was that, in Halle? Or?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I have just always had this sort of interest in contemporary music, so I was always the guy who had to do the modern piece, mm-hmm. which was just fine because I actually really enjoy them. Very few of them, very few of the world premieres that I've been involved in have made it into the standard repertoire. But that doesn't matter. I really enjoy just the challenge of finding, of getting to know a piece and finding what it's trying to say, and then getting that on stage. And I think that's a really exciting process. Whether any of these pieces go into the repertoire, that's for other people to decide. We don't have to make that decision. We just have to do our best when we get the craziness on the page. Where was I going with that?
Well, I just was asking you how many.
How many operas do I have in my repertoire? I don't know, maybe like 120.
Oh, okay, that's all. Okay.
Something like that.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah. Do you have some that? I mean, this is not a fair question. I mean, is there some operas you enjoy working on and performing more than others, or are they all equal in pleasure that you derive from working on them?
Well, I mean, there are definitely some pieces where I'm like just a little bit disappointed when somebody brings it to me to work on. I'm like, for somebody who's played almost all of Wagner. I mean, the mm-hmm. 10 canonic pieces. I'm actually playing Parsifal for the first time next spring. This is the one piece that is actually really missing for me. I mean, I've coached, I think, every single role in Parsifal, but I've never played an entire production. So that's the piece that is missing right now of the really standard repertoire. I think a piece that's really, when someone brings Lohengrin, I'm like, do we have to? Mm-hmm. That's really not one of my favorite pieces.
So let's go reverse. What if somebody brings something else and you're really excited about it?
Well, my current favorite opera is Ballo in Maschera by Verdi.
Okay. Yeah, you just saw it at
I just saw it at the Deutsche Oper, and it was so fabulous, and that's my current favorite opera. any Italian repertoire. I love working on it. Mozart is always wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Any Wagner pieces except Lohengrin I love.
Mm-hmm. You've actually conducted some Wagner operas too.
I conducted Rheingold this summer.
Yeah,
for the Dramatic Voices program in Berlin, which is it's a young artist program for people with dramatic voices. It's a really interesting program. There's no age limit. So the point of the program is for people who are actually established singers, but who find themselves, as they're getting older, the voice is becoming more dramatic. They're moving into heavier repertoire. So this is the kind of program a program that is really perfect for that kind of person. Because most young artist programs have an age limit of 28 or 30. Mm-hmm. But what are you going to do if you're 35? You've been singing for 10 years. The voice is definitely moving in that direction, and yet you can't find anywhere to get experience to really prove that you can move into that repertoire. So that was a really, really fun experience. That was really great.
And I believe this summer you also worked in China.
I did.
And do you work with Chinese students, or is it an international crowd?
Well,
are they students or professionals?
Both. Okay. So this summer I was at the I Sing festival in Suzhou. I was there last summer as well. It's a really, really interesting festival. It's in Suzhou. It's a tiny little fishing village with 13 million people, just outside of Shanghai.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For China, it's tiny.
For China, it's quite small. And the point of this program is that 1/3 of the participants are Chinese, 1/3 are European, 1/3 are American. So people really come from all over the world, and it's about 40 people, 40 singers, which is a really nice size. And they work on, I go there to work on operatic repertoire with them. Sometimes they do a whole production, sometimes it's concerts, staged concerts. But I go just really to teach sort of repertoire interpretation, which is actually really, really nice. It's so interesting to see what people from different parts of the world bring as their idea of what opera is. And of course, I live in Germany. That's why I go, or why they asked me to come, because they want this very specific German point of view on the repertoire and how to perform it, how to interpret it, which is really quite different than the American perspective, and is also very different from the Chinese perspective. I don't know if you know, in the last 10 years in China, there have been 60 opera houses built.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it's a huge growing market. Needs singers.
And I know that you also do master classes. When we say master classes, what does that mean? It's a class given by a master. Oh, it's very Jedi-like. There are a couple different formats for a master class. I would say the most typical is some person with a big name, and I'm not one of those people, but somebody gets off a plane, is whisked by limousine to an important concert hall, and stands on stage and teaches singers how to do their thing in public. I've experienced quite a few of those with Krista Ludwig, Rudy
yes, of
Grizz,
course, absolutely.
Barbara Cook, the late Barbara Cook.
And they can be extraordinarily useful for young singers. They can be quite traumatic for everyone involved.
I've seen some great artists not be very kind to young artists, and I don't find that helpful.
It's not charming.
It's not helpful to the person trying to build a career or at least learn something. But I've also seen them inspire.
Absolutely. Yeah. It can go either way. Terence McNally wrote a whole play about it.
Masterclass.
Exactly.
About Maria Callas.
About Maria Callas at Juilliard. And it's absolutely, first of all, it's a wonderful play, but if you watch the videos of that masterclass, it's absolutely fascinating. You just sort of think, wow, it really is a masterclass in how to do it, but also how not to do it.
Right. Yeah.
So
I know you've played the piano for some of these artists and everything, but you also do your own, right?
Right. Exactly. Yes. So it's actually interesting when I when I give a master class, sometimes I play the piano myself and I accompany the singers myself and then coach from the piano. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's a pianist there who plays and then I end up mostly coaching both of them because the pianists also need instruction in how to sound like an orchestra when you're playing an operatic aria. Mm-hmm. You can't play it like it's a song. You have to give different kind of impulses to the singer if you're trying to imitate an orchestra than if you're just being really the instrument as the instrument and playing a song.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So when I give a class, a master class, or when I'm coaching one-on-one, we start a lot with language. First of all, are you just pronouncing everything correctly? And then it moves on to how do I interpret this text? How do I communicate all the layers of meaning in the text? And then we move on to sort of musical interpretation. How do I phrase? How do I articulate? And what is just a lot of times I find that singers are not, well, that's why they come to me. They want to find out, am I really communicating what I think I'm communicating? Mm-hmm. And we all go through this. Every person who walks on stage to perform a piece of music needs to be sure that they really that what's coming across is what they really do want to come across.
Mm-hmm. It's quite especially when you have complex roles like Don Giovanni or
absolutely,
because these are complex characters.
Absolutely,
too.
They're absolutely three-dimensional people, and like everyone, you can't. If you meet someone for a minute and a half somewhere in a crowded room, they're going to be a different person when you meet them again 3 weeks later, and you have a long conversation in private.
And besides your work at Hans Eisler and these master classes and international work, you also have a private studio here in Berlin called Studio Knutson, right?
I do.
And it's really quite a remarkable space. And what goes on there?
Well,
besides, first of all, I want to just say it's such a beautiful space.
Thank you.
It's, besides being, it's just so, it houses your collection and your husband's or partner's collection, and you have some ancient instruments there, and it's a really gemütlich kind of place.
It certainly is. I'm really, really pleased with it. I must say, it's a renovated factory floor. The building is from about 1880, and on the upper floor of this building, we've put a relatively big concert room, I suppose,
it's
with
a
room for about
space,
45 people. Yeah. And there's a foyer, and there are a couple there's a smaller gallery where we show our light-sensitive works, so prints and drawings. And then in the foyer spaces are where the paintings are hanging. And I have my porcelain collection in a glassed-in case in the big room, and I'm very pleased with the instrument collection. I have a grand piano, a Bechstein grand piano that you've played on, that used to belong to Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau and Julia Vardi. So that's it's a beautiful instrument. I'm so happy to have it, and I wouldn't say I have ancient instruments, but I have a Hammerklavier from 1810, which has just been freshly restored.
Oh, I can't wait to come in.
Exactly, the concert is coming up.
Is it a Broadwood?
No, it's a Rackwitz. Mm-hmm. I have a Broadwood as well from 1787, which will be restored next year. So
fabulous.
Exactly.
I was just at the Music Instrument Museum here in Berlin on Sunday, and it's just, it's so interesting.
It's really...
And now that you have these, I can't wait to come and see it.
It's going to be the
and you also have rehearsal rooms, too.
I have one rehearsal room for warm-ups, for teaching, for one-on-one, for voice lessons, which also has two quite interesting pianos. One of them is just an upright, which is actually quite a beautiful instrument. The other one is a pianino made by the company Nordiska Piano. It's about this high.
Yeah.
It's really very beautiful. And the thing is, the frame is all metal, so it actually sounds like a very big piano, but it's only this high, which is perfect. So if you're sitting at the piano, you can play and you can see the whole singer in front of you. You don't have to be looking over your shoulder all the time.
Interesting. Well, it's a beautiful space.
Thank you.
And you do have concerts there besides...
We have concerts there.
And you have master classes. And
exactly.
It's a really vibrant, ongoing... cultural center now.
Absolutely. I'm really happy that it's sort of found quite a lot of resonance. People are interested in using it, in coming to concerts. I'm looking forward to giving a recital with a young singer, a friend of absolutely.
mine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So we're looking forward to that. I enjoyed performing there when you first opened.
That was a year and a half ago.
Yeah, God, I can't believe it was that long ago.
No. That was really, your concert was one of the first things that we did.
And it was a lovely afternoon. And
it really was.
Everybody enjoyed it. Yeah. So what's on the plate for you next?
What's on the plate for me next? The semester starts today.
So that's why you have to be to school at 1.
That's why I have to be at school at 1. To meet the new students for this semester. Mm-hmm. And my next project at school is Scenes from the Bartered Bride, one of my favorite pieces. I absolutely love it, by Smetana. Really fantastic, wonderful, wonderful opera full of nice people. It's actually a piece I've done quite a lot. I've conducted it a lot. I think I've done 3 productions of it. And it's every time I come back to it, it's like, oh, these people are so nice, and I'm just so happy to work on it. And then the next thing away from the school is I'm going to Beijing to coach Parsifal in the spring.
Oh,
so
that's wonderful that you get to do that.
I'm very, very happy. I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time and coming and having this little brief conversation.
It's my great pleasure.
And I really want to thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you and spend time with you.
Thank you very much.
We'll do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.